Yes.
Welcome everyone to today's workshop on social media. We'll be generally covering what to post, knowing what channels to post on. We'll be covering branding, a lot about content and a lot more really. We'll get going straight away because like I said, there is a lot to get through and I am recording this, so don't feel you've got to make copious amounts of notes that are on the slides because you can access a copy of it afterwards to make it a little bit easier for you. So, what we'll mainly be covering is how to make posts captivating and to get people to actually react and engage with your post. And also making sure that you're staying on brand all the way through. So we're going to start with number one, creating captions with intention. So when creating your social media post captions, I always go back to why. And I don't know whether any of you are familiar with Simon Sinek. He's done a really famous post years and years and years ago called Why. It's a really good video to watch, and I've put the link in here so that you can watch it afterwards. But he just talks about most people start with what they do, not why they do it. And it just changes the emphasis of content when you start thinking like that. If you watch the video straight after this, some of what we're saying will make a lot more sense. So what are the reasons that you're doing it? Are you trying to connect with your audience? If so, why are you trying to connect with your audience? Do you want them to take a specific action? Are they just reading your post? If so, again, why? Is it simply to share your brand personality? Again, ask yourself why. So I think you're starting to get the why is really important. Thinking about the reason behind your why when posting is the first step to creating a caption that really engages your audience. Number two is about encouraging conversations. So try to create captions and content that encourage conversation. Don't tell, more share, and entice your audience to respond. A one-line sentence without a space, you probably won't have enough for that. Try to ask open-ended questions to encourage interactions. If you have a basic caption idea, think about how you can turn it into a question. Maybe link to a venue video, a time-lapse video, a testimonial, so that there's always something else in additional to what you're just telling them. Remember that open-ended questions usually draw more conversation than a general yes or no approach. Number three is include a call to action, mostly and sometimes. So what I mean by that is including a call to action is a great way to make your social media captions more engaging. And I don't mean a sell, I mean give them something that's really useful. So, and invite an action. So you could, for example, ask your followers to visit your latest blog or to answer your question, but not every single caption needs to have a call to action, because asking people to do something too often, you'll probably lose some of your audience. It's like that friend who only asks you to do things for them all the time. After a while, it gets a little bit grating. One of the things that I do, and it works really well, is to give them like little hints and tips. We do this as AVS as well, sort of what to ask if you're searching for a venue, questions to ask, things like that. You'll all have them, and you'll probably have a lot of blogs about things like that. So use your blogs as questions for content as well, but don't give too much away on the actual post. Leave them wanting more so that they click onto the blog. And that's also quite often an opportunity for you to capture their information and get them to sign up to newsletters and things, that if they want that information, they've got to give you a little bit of something as well. Adding value. So a little bit like the previous point, a good way to connect with your audience is to add just some really simple value to the day. So use it to give them information. So for example, for AVS, if a big report comes out once a year on the state of the event economy or anything along those lines, pulling some interesting news from that and sharing it with a link to the full report is always a good bit of information that you can give. But also sometimes just provide a little bit of fun information. So it could be something like a motivational quote, something about that you've done that week, a random act of kindness, or just something embarrassing and funny tend to go really well. People tend to want to engage in those. And if you share something funny or embarrassing that you've done, then again, go back to point number 2, ask them about, have they got anything that they'd like to share? And people are generally quite happy to share funny and embarrassing stories, weirdly enough. Put yourself in your audience shoes is a really important one, because I think sometimes we forget about what their aims and objectives are. So take a step back and think about your post from your audience point of view. So why would your audience care? Would I have something to say if I saw this post in my feed? Am I giving the audience something that they need to respond to? And would my ideal audience or client find this actually interesting? Does this capture and reflect me and my brand? So there's 5 questions straight away on one post that you could ask yourself. And if you just think about a couple of those for each post, it will make a difference. Be yourself. This is a really important one for me. To stand out from your competition and break through all that noise. There's a lot of competition on there. The best way to do that is be authentic and be yourself and reflect your brand personality. Be true to your voice and in the way that you communicate. You'll be, if you follow people regularly, you'll see that the ones that you tend to gravitate towards and really enjoy following are the ones that are authentic and have that voice. Whereas some of the others you might see, you can really tell when different people are posting for a company because they're quite different in their voice and tone. Some might be funny and down to earth, some might be really professional. So it's important to be consistent with your brand voice. Tell a story and stand out. So a great way to make sure that your posts are engaging is to tell that story. So you could share a success, a struggle. Weirdly enough, struggles seem to get more than successes because that's just how we're programmed. Stories that your ideal audience can relate to. Telling a story is a really good way to get your personality across as well. And don't be afraid to create those real connections to stand out. I've got a really good example of this that I've done over the past couple of weeks. I had a new brand photo shoot, which is really uncomfortable, as you all know. It's horrible having your own photos took. But for the first time ever, I really, really like the photos. And that's quite an uncomfortable thing to sit with and say that I love photos of myself. So I did a little blog about it and did a post about it. And the amount of feedback I've had from that people feel the same, that when they do have a really nice photo of themselves, you shouldn't say almost that, you know, it's almost a little bit too embarrassing. But everybody else felt a similar way. I've also got about 6 bookings to the photographer off the back of it, which is brilliant for her. But it was just something really simple and being honest about it that led to, I've had a couple of calls for business, which I've passed on to somebody else. It's not something I want to do, but it has created those connections from something really easy and really honest. Improving your content is a really big one because it's about the quality of the content, and it's easier said than done sometimes with photography and all those kinds of things. So getting your content, getting someone to stop literally scrolling through can be really difficult. Good images or videos are definitely a big thing. And we did speak this week as a team at AVS about the quality of photography is really important, and all of you work at amazing venues, but sometimes the photos don't show the breadth of what you do and the quality of what you do. And that's the same for social media. It's really important to have, there is a lot of stock photography that you can use, but having your own is really, really important. It's just to get people, to stop people swiping past your post and missing your message. A few tips for stopping those thumbs would be getting brilliant artwork for your social posts, and you can do that in Canva. You can create them in lots of other packages. Canva seems to be the one that everybody uses now because I think it's just a really easy way to get really good quality branded posts. Avoid images with too much copy on them. I think sometimes even on an animated post, it's tempting to do 10 slides trying to tell everybody everything that you're doing, but just have 2 or 3 with a few bullet points on, and then put more of the copy in the actual post itself, or even better, link back to your website with all the information that you need to tell. So think about social as the hook, not everything that you're trying to tell them. Definitely, I think that's the biggest thing that most people do wrong, is they'll just put too many words on a post. Use photos as well with people's faces in them, and real people within your business as you can, because people heavy images get much more engagement on across all social, especially on Instagram, is because they almost humanize your brand. Videos, especially with smartphone cameras, it's so easy now just to hit record and, you know, do a video of just walking through your grounds or the setup of an event, or anything that you do, and it's really easy to do that now. There's not really any reason you shouldn't be doing it. Facebook especially, their algorithm prioritizes videos, so if you use Facebook a lot, definitely do more videos. And it's a really fun way to show off what you do. It doesn't have to be professional. Just do it on your smartphone. Try a few and see how you go. Live streaming is a really good way to do this as well when you get the confidence. So what a lot of people do to start with is video themselves and then upload it. When you get more confident with doing that, don't be afraid to try some lives. They tend to get a lot more interaction. Videos that feel a little bit rough around the edges can feel a little bit more authentic too. So again, don't worry if it's not top professional videography. Just be brave and give it a go. Stay inspired. So I'd say keep a list of brands or organisations whose social media imagery that you really like, and check in on them. I have a note in my diary for once a month where I just have an hour where I sit and just go through other people's feeds and screenshot things that made me stop scrolling to see what I really like, and then use that as inspiration for your own. Videos also help. Visuals convey an emotion, but great copy gets people to actually act. So have a strong call to action. Don't make customers guess what you want them to do. Make it clear what they want them to do. So, you know, if it's a click here or visit this website, and tell them your why, which is what we've already discussed. You've got to convince them why your venue is better than somebody else's. So make sure all those sort of top tips and all your USPs are included in there. But again, don't necessarily list 10, 15 different points. Do it as a news story on your website that they can click to, or even use an infographic. It's quite a visual way to do that. Number 9. So there's 7 main steps that I call, but it ends up, as I started going through this yesterday, I kept thinking of more and more things that we could do as part of this. But creating a social media plan, I think, is really important, because I think it's probably fair to say most of us wing it from day to day and don't plan. So sometimes you'll get repetition because you can't remember what you posted a couple of weeks ago. Sometimes you'll rush your graphics because you haven't had the time. So planning is a really, really important step. It helps you effectively plan the different types of content you post across different social media platforms, depending on that audience. A content plan should consist of lots of different type of content. So videos, blogs, ebooks, and content just for stories or reels. So depending on the type of social media platforms you use, you should plan your captions or post copy. So for example, if you plan to post a photo of a customer using your product or venue, you'll need to tell the audience what's happening in the photo to help them understand the content you're showing them. Captions are also a great way to connect with your audience, because you can ask them to leave comments or send shout outs to individuals in your photos. Again, doing a simple video where you've got a client setting up a room gives you the opportunity to tag those in. And again, that helps with the algorithm of people seeing and sharing. Social media content plans are necessary because they help you see all the types of content over the course of a week or a month, depending on how you want to do it. They'll also help you plan for the future. So, for example, if you're planning a product launch or opening of a new venue, you can use your plan to determine the types of content you should create to announce this. Step 1 is learn about your audience. So study your audience. I don't know how many of you will actually do this, but things that you should consider are things like age, gender, education, income, what their interests are, what are the geographical locations. Learning about your audience can really help develop your buyer personas, and that will really help you target the right channels for the right people. So I'd say with regards to channels and platforms, once you know your audience, that will help you decide what channels you should be doing. I think a lot of people make the mistake of trying to do every channel, but then doing most of them really poorly. I'd say start with a few, do them really well and build from there and see how it goes. And don't be afraid to shut a channel down if it's not working for you. If you're posting, we did the same earlier this year, didn't we, Rachel, with AVS, that the Facebook channel was just not getting any traction. It was all LinkedIn. So instead of spending that time on a channel that wasn't working, we stopped using it. And as a consequence, there's more effort going into LinkedIn, and that's building up really well. So I think sometimes we feel like we have to do a little bit of everything. And I'd say don't, look at the ones that you're doing really well, concentrate on those. And then if you get the time and the resource, then add new ones to it. It was like when we had the new, I can't even remember what it was called. What was the new platform that came out recently? And it just died a death, but everybody jumped on it, opened accounts, spent a little bit of time on it, and then realised it's not really taken off. So I'd say don't rush into things, just sit back and see how things go to start with. But learning about your audience and personas will really help you decide on what channels. And it might be that actually you do need to be on all of them, and that's no bad thing, but don't do it just because you feel you should. Do it because you know that that's where the people you're trying to sell to are. Step 2 is goals. It's surprising how many people don't actually have any social media goals. And again, as part of your strategy, this will really help. So things like it will help branding awareness. It will obviously help website traffic if you're putting those links onto your social. It helps with sales and lead generation, and it will help with engagement. It's really simple, but just think about what your actual goals are. So it could be, to increase visitors from this to this. It could be to get more website hits on a particular page, or to get people booked on to an event that you're running. Just be clear about those goals. Step number 3, again, is something I think a lot of people don't do, and that's some competitor analysis. It doesn't have to be a whole essay. It can just be really simple. We do it every month. We compare ourselves against our main competitors in a few different areas. So it could be number of posts, it could be number of followers, it could be best performing posts. So just have a look at what your competitors are doing. It's really useful as well if they're posting things that regularly get really good interaction and engagement. Have a look at why they're doing that. Is there anything you can learn from that post? I'd say use it as inspiration sooner than completely copy it, but it's quite easy just to change the wording and the images, and then it can become your you can put your own spin on it. I've seen quite a few people just copy word for word other companies' posts, and never goes down well. There's no need to do that, but definitely use it as inspiration. Gathering content. Your brand probably has a few pieces of content that you use on a regular basis. So I'd say for the social media plan is put all your content in one place, and then
we keep losing you a bit. There's a few like spaces, and I don't know whether you're freezing or whether we're actually missing bit.
I'm just updating internet to see whether that helps. Can you hear me fine now? Am I back now?
We lost it.
Am I back now?
You're back now.
I've just redone the internet because it looked like it was struggling. It looks like we've got a really big thunderstorm brewing, so I don't know whether it's to do with that. It doesn't like it. Do I need to go back one? Did you get all the competitor analysis part?
Yes, I think I would start this slide.
This one?
Yeah.
Content.
Thank you.
So content wise, what I was saying is I think most of you will have a few pieces of content that you use on a regular basis. What I tend to do is when you're doing a plan is I'm old school, so I like having printed copies, but I'll just print off a lot of the general posts that I've got so that I can move them around in front of me. You can do this on a computer. You don't have to do it the old-fashioned way, but I just visually, I find it really useful once a month just to have a look at what posts I've done, what new ones I've done, and what I can repurpose. For example, if your website has a blog, you can use that blog to post on social media and maybe break it down into even 2 or 3 different posts. So one piece of content that's on your website could become 3 posts on social media, or make it into an infographic. Again, if you use Canva, it's really easy to do that. And again, it doesn't have to be 1 post. You could break it down onto 3 or 4 if you've got lots of content to share with that. Developing the plan, you might not have enough content to repurpose for daily posts. So having a content plan allows you to spend a little bit of time really thinking about what you want to post. So planning and programming directly on your channels or via Hootsuite or whatever is one of the top tips, because it's a really big time saver. But also some of the software like Zoho lets you copy and repeat posts. So that's perfect for evergreen type posts. And by that, I mean things that aren't date specific. So that could be things like, for us, we'll do, did you know that we have over 50 unique venues? We cover the whole of the country. We've got sustainable venues. We've got sporting venues. So posts like that, we know we can use literally every week. So they're what I call evergreen. So other than maybe once a month, I'll change the image on it, or, you know, just change the design so it freshens it up. Content literally stays the same. And we've probably got about 10 to 15 evergreen posts. So if you start thinking of your month and how many days you post, which is usually about 20, because it tends to be Monday to Friday for 4 weeks, you've already got a lot of that content. So if you're doing a couple of posts a day or 1 a day, you're already a long way there. So that's why sometimes printing it off and looking it out, moving it around to space it out, so you've not got 5 days in the row of evergreen type posts. It just makes it easier to visually see. So set aside some time each month to develop new content and to look at your evergreen content so that you've always got lots of ideas coming up. You can also utilize content your followers and customers create for you. So things like if you're in different awarding bodies or different membership groups, they will post things that are useful to your audience. So don't be afraid to share those. Tag them in because they'll like that. And again, it helps with the whole algorithm. So if you see something that you think, oh, you know, everybody in your industry is going to be interested in that, post it and say exactly that. Saw this amazing survey or post, found it really useful, wanted to share to see if you find it useful too. You know, if you do 1 of those a week, again, it's another batch of posts on your social media content plan that's quite easy to do, and it can help encourage new followers, because the people that you share that post to, if you tag them in, all their followers will see a lot more of that you've shared. So it just spiders out and helps more people see. Step number 6, create a calendar. Again, I just print it out because I'm old school, but you could just have it on a spreadsheet. And I do put all mine onto a spreadsheet to help me send it to people to authorize and check. One of the things that I use all the time is something called awareness days. And the website is on there. And again, you can get a copy of this. You don't have to subscribe to it. I do, because it gives me every single awareness day in the whole world if I want it, but I concentrate on the UK. But again, towards the end of each month, I look at the following month's awareness days. And there's some really weird and wonderful ones. It's like National Penguin Day and things that are not at all related to what you do, but there'll be a few that really stick out that are interesting for you. Use those, and they give you the content already. They'll always give you a link to the main website for that awareness day, as well as hashtags and images that you can use. So again, throughout the month, there's usually 3 or 4 awareness days that are of interest. So again, it's just some more days ticked off on your content calendar. And especially if it's a fun, humorous one that people like. National Sandwich Day is always a good one, because that causes a lot of debate about whose favourite sandwich it is, and putting just a fun note on about what yours is, but asking other people. It's always surprising how many people will answer a social post like that. Step 7 is evaluation. So I'd say, again, a lot of people just post day after day, week after week, and don't really evaluate what the social media content is doing. This will really help you decide whether you need to carry on with all the channels that you're using or not, as the case may be, if it's not performing well. Sometimes it isn't that your content is poor, it's just that that channel is not fit for purpose for you. The right people don't hang out on that platform. So don't be afraid to shut channels down or just put them to sleep for a little while. Re-evaluating your content is really important. So every month, what you should do is, what is your best performing post? I tend to do top 5. And what we've found over the last 6 months is those top performing posts are the ones that are meeting. So things like this, we'll just do a screen still of everybody on the call. Rachel will go and visit a venue with Helen, and they'll take some photos. They're the ones for us that get really good engagement, not the ones that I've spent ages designing and writing copy for. It's just the ones that are people. So I'd say, when you're out and about, take those videos, take those photos, because I guarantee they'll be the ones that, get really good engagement. But until you look at what your evaluation is, every platform has their own analytics. Have a look into that. Do your top performing posts. Look at how many posts you're doing a day, because it will recommend what would be your optimal amount, or over a week. It will also tell you the best days to post and the best times to post, looking at what you've already done. So use that information and then do something with it, because what a lot of people do is they look at those reports, but then they don't change anything that they're doing at all. So that information, the analytics on all the platforms is brilliant. It's AI at its best, what information it pulls out for you. So make sure at least once a month you just have even if it's just half an hour, to have a look at how things have performed and what you can learn from it. And I tend to do that just before I do the following month's plan, so that it can inform, because it does change over different times of the year. You'll notice as well that things change. People tend to, through the winter, they're on social media a lot more than they are in the summer, for example. So don't just do it once a year. Evaluate, I'd say at least once a month, and it doesn't take too long to do it then, because most of the platforms where you can get your analytics, you can change the dates. So I'll just say, look at last month's dates and do an evaluation on that. The types of social media content, I think people are always surprised at just how much there actually is. So, for example, written blogs, written posts, which includes blogs, articles, guides. The advantages of these is those kind of articles demonstrate your knowledge and expertise. It will help you build credibility and reputation. The disadvantage, I suppose, of those kind of content is there's so much blog content out there now, so competition's really thick. So you need to create lots of new topic ideas. Writing these also can take a lot of time. Just the time to think new ideas through isn't always easy when everyone's as busy as you are. So do them, but maybe when you're doing your plan, you only do one of those every month or one every couple of months, but it's important to include those kind of things in your plan. And the other thing with those kind of articles is you can use other people's, like we said before. So, you know, if there's somebody that's really well known in the sector and they've wrote a really good blog, use it and tag them in and credit them on it. It's not pinching their content, it's just saying you found that article really interesting and informative. Best platforms for those kind of content tends to be LinkedIn and Facebook, especially when it comes to articles that are 1,500 words or longer, because you can either post the whole thing or a short snippet with a link to the piece, which is, I think, the best way to do it. Twitter, well, X is also good, but the limited character count means that you can often just do a really small quote and then a link to it. But that's really good because it tends to drive a lot more traffic to your website. Electronic books and ebooks, it's something that a lot of people still do. It tends to be a longer and a more detailed than a blog post. I think that generally is the difference. So it can be a whole book, and people will tend to put those on the website as a download, and the social post will be a link to what the ebook's about. You can download it for free here, but again, you'll have all done it where you download something for free, but you have to give them your email address or something to get that information. So if you're looking to build your database for e-shots, for example, it's a really good way to do it. Ebooks will be, if it's the subject that people are interested in, encourage people to sign up to your list. External content. So if you, like we said, if you don't have time to write your own blogs, use external ones, but always use industry leaders, because again, you know that they're trusted and they're not going to say anything they shouldn't say. And but there is a lot of that content out there. So if you just search for reports around your industry, there'll be lots that pop up. Even if it's a really good report, if it's not been shared much or you've never heard of them, be really cautious about using that, even if the report looks really good. So use tried and trusted people and companies. Images, good images and video definitely increases engagement. They endear your brand to customers, and they also stop people swiping past your post because they'll know that it's your brand. Visual content's a lot more digestible as well as engaging for people than long form blogs and articles. And everyone's smartphones now tend to take really good pictures, so it's easier and quicker for us to do that. Other things on there are things like, we've spoken about videos, video stories, live videos, all those things. I'd say be brave and give them a go. Infographics are a really interesting way that seems to be on the increase as well. And in Canva, there is loads of templates for infographics. So you don't need professional designers to do those for you now. It's easy enough to do in there. And infographics are proven to, it's a way that we can take in a lot of information a lot simpler. People really like to look at infographics sooner than a whole page of lots of copy. But again, what I'd probably do is do a snapshot of that and then link it back to your website and have that on your website. Testimonials and reviews are really, really important. If you've got different sites that you use, like your Trustpilots and things, if you've got a really good score, that should be one of your evergreen posts. Have you seen our latest testimonials? And you don't necessarily have to put the exact post on your social media, just link to that platform or link to your website with those testimonials on. Again, I'd say probably once every 7 or 8 days, reinforce those testimonials if you're getting regular ones especially. And if you're not getting regular ones, we'll do a whole different workshop about LinkedIn again with making sure that you get regular reviews. Announcements are always good for social media as well. Anything that's happening in the business, any promotions, any key dates, you know, your 10,000th event that you've run, all those kind of things. They make quite nice graphics, and it's really interesting for people to see those key dates. Contests have to be really careful, obviously, with contests in some industries, and holidays. So again, this is sort of key holiday times. The awareness planner that you had the link for will tell you all the key holidays, not just here, but across the world. And there's some really fascinating ones. So again, they could be part of when you look at the month ahead. You might see a few there that you've never heard of, but you thought sounds quite interesting. And you can link to the information about that sort of day and, you know, just share some interesting information with your followers. Number 11 is brand. So one of my pet hates when I'm seeing people's social media posts is they look completely different all the time. So some will just be a photo, some will just be copy, but in a different font, might have the same colour, but there isn't that feeling of a real brand on it. Again, at the moment, don't think there's any excuse not to be branded with the advent of Canva. So I'd say design 5 or 6 different templates that you use as a regular basis, where you can just copy and then change the image, change the copy, add a link, so that the brand starts to feel really familiar to people that are watching it. People follow you and they're interested when they're scrolling through really, really quickly and they instantly recognize your brand. It will make them stop if they're interested. Whereas if it's just a photo, it could be a photo of anyone. So even when you're sharing videos and content, if you can drop your watermark on, for example, so just put a little logo in the corner, overlay it, it all just helps with that professional branding. And we talked about brand voice earlier, and I think that's really, really important to be consistent. So from an AVS point of view, we're always friendly, fun and down to earth. What's your brand voice? Have a think about that. Look at your probably last 10 posts, and does it sound like the same person's written them, or does it sound like 5 or 6 different people have written them, so that you can be consistent? And how do you think that brand voice portrays across your own social media? Brand voice should be something that is in your guidelines. So if you've got a copy of your guidelines, there should be some information about that. And that could help guide you, especially with the advent of AI. If you know what your brand voice is, you can often say to a lot of the different AI software that you can use now, you can tell it to be more fun, more professional, more jokey, you know, depending on what your brand voice is, you can tell it you want it to be fun and friendly. So again, it just helps with that consistency of what people expect when they see your brand. Seems to have frozen. So the next steps are, it's over to you really, to put some of those actions into play. Try some of the things. And what would be really good, if you're trying a live video for the first time, or you're doing some video footage, tag some of us in that have been on the call so that we can see what you've done, so that you can share ideas and what works. Don't be afraid to sort of ask some of us, you know, tag me into everything you do. It's fine, because I'd quite like to see what you're all doing. But then see what sort of momentum they gather from what you're doing. And over the course of, I think you need to give it probably a month, but you'll start seeing kind of what's going well, what isn't. And also sometimes it's just about timing. So it might be that you do a really good post and you get no engagement. Don't be afraid to use that post again in your plan when you do it, because although it might have just been that day and that time, everyone was super busy, nobody really had a chance to comment on it. Or what you could do is just retweak it slightly and think about asking a question, or putting some information or a link to some useful information about that post, so that there's something more captivating about it. And it goes back to that why. What do you want people to do with a certain post? Some of them will be purely they just want to get your brand out there and get people recognizing. Some might be that you want to be seen as the experts in your industry, and that's kind of a thought leadership post. You don't necessarily need action from it. It's just a reinforcing that. So just have a really good range of posts with lots of different content that you can use on a regular basis, but make sure there's probably, you know, sort of 2 weeks between some of the more salesy posts, if you like, so that people aren't seeing the same thing all the time. And I think that is everything on social media for today. So there should be a little bit of time for us to ask questions, share thoughts. Let me just stop sharing my screen.
Dawn, Helen's asked, do hashtags have any real value in posts?
I always say I don't think they do, but the proper line is they do if people are searching for hashtags. So if there's a particular hashtag that you've been following or that you're interested in, then it's just a really good way for you to search for everybody that's talking about that. But I never do that, and I don't know many people that ever do. But it can help from an algorithm point of view if you've got a unique hashtag and lots of people are using it. So I'd say definitely use them, especially if it's a really big sort of event or something that everybody will be using the same hashtag for. Because like the meeting show is a really good example. If people search for the meeting show hashtag, all our posts, all the people that are going as stand sharers will show up. But I don't know many people that actually search for that. You know, it's more of a case if somebody does, you'll be there and you'll be included. But the background algorithm apparently does use hashtags. There's not much evidence of how it does that, what it does for it. So I'd say keep using them for now until we've got more information about them, really.
Anybody else?
The paid promotion on Instagram hamper with the account's algorithm and reach. I don't think it hampers it. I think it will definitely support it, because obviously all the channels want you to do paid promotions. So it will help, not hinder. Again, like a lot of the paid promotions, they say that it helps, but there's not much evidence to say other than how your paid promotion did, because they can provide all the analytics for that. But it's supposed to be a positive if you're doing paid promotions. So yeah, you can keep going with those. I agree with you, James, about who's using what. I've got some information on what generations use what channels, but I kind of take it with a pinch of salt, because you speak to people that you think they're definitely going to be Instagrammers and they hate Instagram. I'm not on Instagram. I really don't like it. And yet, for what I do, I should be an Instagrammer, but I'm old school Facebook and LinkedIn, and I just concentrate on those now. I think Twitter's definitely losing a lot of people. There's lots of stats on that. And I think it is because nobody liked the change to X for some reason. Everybody got used to Twitter and don't like it. So I can share some information on all the generations and what their top platforms are, because it will help you with an audience point of view. But I would say use your own analytics to tell you who's actually using what. So are most of you, a lot of you on a lot of platforms at the moment, I'd imagine, trying to cover everything. If you are, use the stats on there to see and put a few of them to sleep for a while if they're not really using it. Is TikTok appropriate professionally? Saddens me to say, but TikTok's one of the biggest growing platforms for business. I don't get it at all, you know, but also, you know, again, I'm probably not the target market. On every course I go on and every social media person I meet that all they do is social media, they are always really shocked that TikTok is on the rise massively, because I think there's a lot more you can do on TikTok than what it was originally started for, and that's where it's spreading a lot now. So I'd say it's definitely appropriate professionally, depending on what you're posting on it, but that's the same for every platform really. Instagram encompasses a lot of social media sites like TikTok and Twitter, so yeah. I think Instagram is fantastic for businesses that sell a product that you can visually see, foodies, all those kind of things work really, really well on Instagram. That said, it can work for lots of different service industries as well. But again, have a look at what your competitors or people that you like to follow are doing on these different platforms, and then that will help you figure out, well, why do you like that? Why have you engaged with that? And can you do something similar? I think the problem is now there's so many platforms, and I don't think there's a one size fits all anymore. I think it is just, we've all got a personal preference. So although we should sit in a particular box for Generation X and all the different things, we don't anymore. I think it's really hard to do that from a generational and age point of view. There'll always be people like me that will stay on Facebook forever because it's what we started with and what we're comfortable with. But I don't do much business on Facebook. It's more from a personal branding point of view, whereas LinkedIn is where I do all my business work. I tend not to use any of the other platforms because I've not needed to, but I've got a lot of clients that will do loads of Instagram, does really well. TikTok does really well. X, Twitter, whatever we want to call it, does really well for others as well. So I'd say I'll send you some of the information out so that you've got it and you can see where your audience should apparently be sitting, but use your own analytics to inform that decision. And a really good guide is, if you've got competitors that you know have got massive marketing departments and big budgets, have a look at what they're doing, because they probably pay someone to do the research. So they're probably on those channels because they know it works for them. So you can kind of use that as a bit of a hint really of what should work for you. Anything else? It's quite a lot to take in, isn't it? But I'd say the number one thing for me is planning and putting time aside to look at what posts you've done in the past, what worked well and what didn't. And then maybe every week just do a couple of new posts that can go into that package that you use all the time. Because over the course of 2 or 3 months, you'll build up so much content then, it makes it a lot easier. And when you start thinking about, you know, maybe do a testimonial on a Tuesday or do a motivational quote on one of the days, you've got your awareness days to slot in there. You soon start filling up those days, especially if you have lots of meetings and lots of visitors and those kind of things where you can do them ad hoc on the day. It's surprising sometimes. I mean, we're pretty much at 2 posts every day because we've got so much that we need to share all the time. We've got to do more than what we did, otherwise things get missed. So you'll be surprised at how big your planner fills up when you start slotting all those things in. Yeah, I think the setting time side is something that we all know we should do, but very rarely do. And then we just go, we're late from like month to month of, oh, I've got to find some content, what can I do? And then at the end of the month, we wonder why we've got no new followers or we've lost people because we've not spent any time or effort on actual content. So if you can start being the source of really useful content for people, you'll grow your following really quickly. So you be the one that finds those interesting reports or websites that give you really good information or infographics and share them. They don't have to be yours, but you can be the source that people go to go, I know they've always got really good hints and tips on here, or I know they've got really good industry research. You become the go-to person for it, really. So it just makes it easier. Any other questions? No, well, I'll put the recording on the members site along with the links to the awareness days, and also I'd encourage everyone to watch the Simon Sinek video that's in the notes quite early on as to the why, because I think that really explains a lot. It makes sense once you've watched it.
Dawn, some of the people on the call aren't able to access the member site because they're not members. Are we able to send it to the list of people that signed up to the session
Yeah,
along with the
absolutely.
slides if possible? It was
Yeah,
brilliant. That was a
yeah.
really, really brilliant session. Thank you.
It's
Thank
quite
you so much.
it's a complicated area, and I know it worries a lot of people, but it's not actually that complicated if you break it down and plan really, and then it becomes a lot easier. I mean,
Sounds a bit
think,
like life.
yeah, yeah, it is really. If only I could plan my life as well as social media, it would be a lot easier. But try it and then share your thoughts, you know, sort of let me know whether it feels a lot less overwhelming once you start planning. And you soon, it's that habit forming thing, isn't it? Again, that none of us are particularly good at, but you know, I've got into the habit now of, I even, you know, I put an hour in every couple of weeks to have a look at, just to literally trawl through the socials of random companies, not even, you know, competitors, just to see. I just tend to, when I'm scrolling, if something makes me stop, I ask myself why. And that's been really useful. And I've learned a lot by doing that. And it's usually pictures of people, you know, so it comes back to that people buy from people. So wherever you can, chuck loads of videos and things on of visits and meetings, and
You
it
wait till the meeting
helps.
show. We'll be bombarded by
Yeah,
by
absolutely.
us next
Yeah.
week creating content.
Yeah, you know they're going to be the best ones just when you tag everybody in that are on there. So yeah, definitely.
Have we got a short break now from the masterclasses, or have we I'm not sure if we've got any in July and August.
I think we have got one in.
Have we?
No, we spoke about it. I don't know whether we booked it in. Let me just have a look on the events, because I think the social media one about planning was one of the ones that came up. Actually, how do you write the plan, which is like a follow on from this, really.
Yeah.
That would make sense probably to do as the next one.
Yeah.
People can start thinking about that. And then it's, if there's any other subjects, we always ask people on these calls, what causes you pain and what can we help with, really. Get in touch, you know, we're always happy to put those on. I've already had quite a few requests for LinkedIn again. People couldn't do that. We have got a recording of that, but I think people just like to do it. And what we said with that one, we didn't know whether with a few of these, especially LinkedIn, that we build in time so that what we're talking about people can do live while we're doing it, almost, you know, sort of, this is where you can change that, go in and change it so that it'll make it slightly longer. But I don't know whether everyone's the same as me. If I go on a training call and I make loads of notes and then they stay in a pile and a month later I've still not done anything with them. Whereas if we can make it more interactive, I think it'll be more useful for everyone on the call. Because as soon as you're off it, you're back into day to day, aren't you? And it's hard sometimes to book that time in. So I think there'll be a social media planning and another LinkedIn.
Brilliant.
And I think PR was on the list as well.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, brilliant.
So when I send the information, the link for the recording, I'll send what the next masterclasses are as well.
Thank you.
And then if anyone's got any ideas for what they'd like as a masterclass, anything marketing related, let us know.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dawn.
Ahead of schedule as well.
Oh, thanks, Dawn.
No problem. Lovely to see you all.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
See you soon.